Hello everyone, my name is Chetan Mehta and welcome to the demo session on Business Analysis Core Competency Program. Just to start with a brief introduction of mine, my name is Chetan Mehta. I have a bachelor's in marketing and an MBA in finance. In all, I have like 15 years of work experience, out of which 4 years I've worked in non-IT side, and for the past 10 years I've been working as a business analyst. Worked in different domains in healthcare, pure finance, logistics, travel and transportation, and for the past 5 years I've been working on the government side. So in this session, what I want to do is, give you an overview of the business analysis, what the discipline is all about, what are the key skills required, and give you guys some good insights of what this whole profession is all about and why you should pursue your career as a business analyst. So agenda for today's demo is, as I said, to get a good understanding of the BA domain, the BA discipline, the role of a business analyst on any project, the importance of doing a business analysis work. Then we will also take a look at some of the key skills required to become a good business analyst. What are the career prospects? So once you become a BA, what you get, what this discipline offers, and how do you take your career to a different level once you start working as a business analyst. And then we'll focus on our training program, what are the key highlights and how the program has been structured, and then we can have a Q&A session. So before I start talking about the business analysis, let me first talk about the first term, which is business. What we mean by business. So when we talk about the business, typically people think it's an entity that has been formed to sell some product or services. I mean, that is definitely true definition, but in reality, a business is any entity that is formed and administered to engage in either commercial activities, that is to make a profit, or a non-commercial activities. So let's first understand this whole concept of business, and then we'll talk about the BA, business analysis. So as I said, the business entity can be defined into two different categories: commercial entities and non-commercial entities. So when I say commercial entities, these are the entities whose main goal is to maximize the profit, minimize the cost, and if they have taken money from the shareholders, to maximize the shareholder value. So these three are the basic objectives of any commercial entities. So profit maximization, cost minimization, and maximizing the shareholder value. And some of the examples are Apple, Microsoft, McDonald's, Texas Instruments, Exxon, you name any of these. They exist to make profit, minimize the cost, and maximize the shareholder value. So on the other end of the spectrum, we have the non-commercial entities. Now within the non-commercial, we have two further categories. One is the NPOs, non-profit organizations, non-governmental organizations, and charitable organizations. So these NPOs, non-profit organizations, so they exist for a reason, to achieve some mission. So even these organizations, they have some sort of revenue coming in. They are not selling their services or products for free. Of course, they have some sort of business model there. They generate some revenue, but they use this revenue to achieve its goals rather than distributing them as a profit or dividends. So, for example, I will take an example of PMI, Project Management Institute. So, since I'm a member of PMI, I'll give you some examples of that. So, to become a member of a PMI, you need to pay some fees. To attend their seminars or conferences or any of those events, you need to pay some fees to them. So they have some revenues because they do have some their own cost, their operating cost. They have to pay all the overheads. They have a whole lot of people who are working for that organization, PMI. So they have to pay their fees, I mean salaries. So they generate the revenues, but they don't really use the profits they make other than reinvesting it in their own goals or in the same objectives. So they will reinvest the same money which they generate in order to promote the project management discipline. They might be opening new charters, or they might be arranging some new conferences using that money. And then we have the charitable organizations, which are mainly the philanthropic goals uh, for which they exist. So it can be like Greenpeace, American Red Cross. So here they don't even, I mean, most of the times they don't charge any fees or any sort of money from people. What they do is, they will try to generate the money from some sort of corporate house or some rich billionaire. They will generate those, sources of funds, and then they will use it for the mission for which they exist. So we have commercial, non-commercial. Within the non-commercial, we have the charitable and the NPOs. But we will mainly focus on the commercial because that's where most of the projects are. So when we talk about the commercial, in fact, it's the same is true for either non-commercial, but as I said, we'll mainly focus on the commercial side. So when we talk about the commercial entities, within the commercial entities, you have different departments structured, the organizational structure and the different departments set within those entities. When I talk about the organizational structure, you have the hierarchy of people who will be reporting to a different level, and they are typically they are distributed or divided into different departments. So when I talk about a departments within a commercial entity, mainly we can think of production, operations, marketing, sales, logistics, information technology, finance, accounting, research and development, right? Legal, human resources, and many more. These are the typical departments you will find in any organization. Now, within the departments, you will have a set of processes which will be running in order to produce some sort of output. So when I say process, it's nothing but a set of activities performed within an organization to achieve some sort of output. So for example, you may have some processes called order processing, whose job is to process an order received by the customer. Payment processing, the goal of this process is to process a payment submitted by customer. So these are some of the typical processes you will see in some of in the organization. So it can be, I mean, all productions will have its own set of processes, accounts will have its own set of processes, and so on and so forth. Now, who is doing or conducting these processes? Right? It will be a set of people or some sort of machine, or it can be some sort of system application. So either of these two elements will be involved in the process. So for example, order processing, a customer may be involved to submit an order, but from the processing point of view, there may be some other role who is processing that order. So there is a human role involved in the process, and the human may be using some sort of system to perform the process. Okay. Now the reason why all these things are happening, why the business entity is formed, why they have divided or distributed their organization into different structures. They run the set of processes. Within the processes, they have some sort of operations and tasks being done by the people, taking help of some sort of system or application. The reason why we are doing all this is because they have some sort of vision they have set for their organization. When I say vision, every organization has a vision no matter what. A vision is something which the management, the top leadership of the organization sit down and they want to see where they want to take their organization in 5, 10 or 15 years down the line. So it's basically a long-term vision or long-term roadmap of where the organization will go, how they want to steer it, and where they want to be, right? It's a very long-term roadmap. So they have a vision. Based on the vision, they will set some goals. Now, goals are more specific in nature, but they are aligned to the vision. And then they come up with the strategies to achieve those goals. So now you see these all three are in sync, the vision, goal, and strategies. So let me give an example. Let's take a hypothetical example of a US bank based in, let's say, Minneapolis. So the management decides that, okay, in 10 years down the line, we want to be a market leader in the retail banking space. Now that's their vision. That's a long-term goal they have. They have set for their bank, which is at a very high level. So it's basically just the roadmap of where they want to take their bank. So when you talk about the goals, they will be more specific in nature, what we call the SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. So I will have a goal something like to gain 20% market share in the retail banking space by 2020 in North American market. So I'm here being very specific that, okay, I want to gain 20% market share in the retail banking space by 2020 and in a particular market, that is a North American market. And then comes the strategies. I may have multiple strategies to achieve those goals and achieve my vision. For example, one of the strategy can be, I want to reduce my operating cost by $4 million. Second can be to take advantage of the new technologies coming in. Third can be to penetrate into Midwest region by opening new branches, ATMs, partnerships with different stores. It can also be that the management has identified some of the problems, the key pain points. They may see, okay, our customer service is not up to the mark. Our loan processing request is taking 10 days, whereas the competition is doing it in 2 days. So we need to fix that. We need to fix our customer service. So they may identify all these things and say, okay, these are our strategies by which we will achieve the goals, and in turn our goals will be meeting the vision which we have set, right? So that's how typically any commercial entities operate. They will perform all these set of processes, operations, tasks using professionals, humans, systems, application, in order to keep their vision, goal and strategy in sync. Now let's take a look at a different aspect of what goes wrong, because in a perfect world, everything will be in sync. Once I set my vision and once I set my goal and strategy, there should be no problem, right? But that's not the case. So let's talk a little bit of ecosystem. What is ecosystem? So typically ecosystem is how we communicate or how we interact with all the living and non-living elements within the environment, knowingly, unknowingly, willingly, unwillingly, right? So we are all connected. So as a human, we don't live in isolation. We live as part of the ecosystem, and it goes true for all the different species. It's not just true for humans, it's true for any sort of animals or microbes, or you take any other element of nature. We are all connected. But the good thing about the natural ecosystem is it's very balanced and it's not dynamic in nature. When I say dynamic, that means everything is set in place. If we follow the rules, it's not going to change. On the same lines, we have a term called business ecosystem. Now, what business ecosystem says is your organization is not living or not in isolation as compared to its environment. It is connected to so many other elements within the environment which you need to understand and which you need to respond to it whenever changes happen. So quickly talking about the business ecosystem. So here you have your core enterprise. You have your departments, units, people, different processes, your value streams, the key capabilities, your core competency of your organization, your supply chain. That's your core elements of your enterprise. As you move outside, you have your customers. You have your customers of customers. Then you have your suppliers of the suppliers and your strategic partners, which form part of your extended enterprise. Now, of course, you have to take care of your customers, but the business ecosystem says it's not just enough to take care of your direct customers. You should also take care of your customers of the customer. So for example, you are producing some sort of product or service, right, which is being used by your customer, but in turn they have their own customers who are directly or indirectly using your product or service. And if this group is not happy, it will start impacting your customers, and in turn it will start impacting your core business. Similarly, your supplier of supplier. Let's suppose you are taking some sort of raw material from a supplier, but in turn your supplier is getting their own raw material from a third party. So if the quality of the raw materials being supplied by the third party vendor starts getting deteriorated, they start selling a low grade quality product to your supplier, that will start showing up in your product. And again, it will impact your customer, it will impact your customer of customer, and you will definitely see that impact on your revenues and profits. And then you have this, the third ring, where you have this, all these environmental factors. You have the economical environmental factors, social factors, competition. This is one of the biggest factors you need to consider. Technological advancements. Your investors, people who have invested in your organization. The government, they come up with all sorts of rules and regulations, laws, which you need to abide by. So you have all these different factors. Now what business ecosystem says that it's not just enough to take care of this part. You have to understand each and every element in this ring and this ring, and make sure that you are responding to the change. So that's a concept of business ecosystem. So what I was trying to say is, unlike the natural ecosystem, which is very much set in place, the business ecosystem is very dynamic in nature. Whenever there is a change in your business ecosystem, what we call disruption in the business ecosystem, it will result in either a problem or an opportunities for an organization. And whenever you have this kind of disruption, the vision, the goal and strategies set by the management needs to be realigned, because now it's out of sync. So there has to be a realignment of your vision, goals and strategies whenever you have a disruption in your business ecosystem. And whenever there is a disruption in the business ecosystem, you will often see any of these two. Either there will be some sort of problem, or it can also be an opportunity for an organization which they may need to exploit. So let me give some examples of the problems and opportunities. Let me go back here. So let's suppose a competition. As part of the competition, your competitors here, they launch a new product, or they already have a product, but now they add some new new features to the product. Now you cannot just sit back and look at it. You need to react to it. You need to either come up with a product which has all the features. If you don't have a product, you have to come up with a product, or you have to enhance your product which will have the same set of features or more than that, right? So that's a problem. When you have a good competition, they come up with a good products or services, you need to take note of it and react to it. Now in the legal, what I mean is, government will come up with some new rules and laws which you have to abide to. You don't have option. How often can you say, okay, the government comes up with some new rules and laws, and you say, okay, I'm not interested. You cannot do that. And that's again a problem, because I may have a set of processes or systems or applications which I need to now make them compliant to this new rule or new law. So if you remember, in 2009 there was a subprime mortgage crisis, and the government came up with so many new rules and laws which overnight all the systems had to be updated in order to abide by those laws. And then on the other hand, you have also some sort of opportunities coming in whenever you have this kind of disruption. And some of the opportunities can be, for example, um, in the emerging markets or the countries or economies like India, China, or even some parts of East Europe, you know, all of a sudden you have so many, new products and services coming in. The consumer demand has changed, the consumer perception has changed. So that's an opportunity for so many large organizations trying to tap that market. Right? So I'll just give an example like 14 years or 12 years back, nobody would do an online transaction in India. Since I'm from India, I will just give that example. So 12 years back, I'd never recollect anyone doing an online transaction. But in today's world, I mean, as of today, it's very common even people buying their stuff on the phone. So that consumer perception has changed, the consumer behavior has changed, and now people see a lot of opportunities in those markets. And not only Indian companies are getting into the e-commerce model, but also all the American or all the multinational companies are trying to get some good market share in those economies. So basically this is what I'm trying to say. There is a disruption, it can be a problem, it can be an opportunities, but whenever there is any of these two things, the management wants a solution for that. They need a solution either to help them solve the problem or help them exploit the opportunities. Any of these two. So when I say solution, first thing people talk about is, okay, they need some sort of system or some application which they want to build. But technically, solution is just not just some sort of technical solution. It can be much more than that. It can have a mix of both. A solution can be a mix of a non-technical and the technical aspect. So typically a solution is a mix of all these four. So at a very high level, they may start thinking from, okay, how do we structure our organization? Do we need to realign them? Do we need to get rid of some of the departments or units? You might have heard like many times, in the news, you may be hearing that, okay, company Apple or Dell, Microsoft, they had a layoff of 5,000 people at a time. So most often what they do is, they identify some of the units or some of the departments which they think that, okay, they are not giving or they are not very profitable. They are just adding some overheads or costs to them, which they can better manage if they get or they close that department and maybe outsource it. Or even sometimes they merge some of the departments to synergize the operations and reduce the cost. So organizational restructuring is one of the very common elements when they are doing this kind of work. The next thing is very important, which is where the BA, business analyst role, will be coming in. The business process re-engineering and improvement initiatives. So they may have set of processes. Typically any organization, a mid-sized organization, will have more than like 1,000 processes running. So they may identify, they may have to work, they may have to identify those processes and do some sort of re-engineering or improvement, like drastically changing the way they are doing those processes. And based on these improvements, they will develop some sort of systems or applications which will help them run those processes. So any of these four will be part of the solution. It can be all four, it can be any one of these, or it can be a mix of these. And that depends on, situation to situation. There is no set answer to that. But it can be any of these four. So what happens is the management says, okay, we need a solution. Now this is what a solution looks like. But generally they don't have the people or right expertise within their own organization to build the solution and implement the solution. So what they do is they will hire a team of people who can help them identify some of the problems, right? And develop the solution and implement the solution. So experts, or what we call consultants, will be hired to design, propose, and develop the solution that will help them solve the problem or exploit the opportunities. Now, when I talk about the team here, the expert consultants, of course, you will have they will have a project manager, they will have the non-IT people. And when I say non-IT people, it can be SMEs, subject matter experts. It can be some business consultants or management consultants who are coming in to help them. And you have then, technical expertise, people with technical expertise. And I will keep the business analyst in between the business and technical. So this guy, the business analyst, should be well versed on the business side as well as on the technical side. Now, when I say technical side, it doesn't mean you need to start coding and you should be learning all the, how to code and how to design an architecture of the system. But you should be able to communicate your requirements to your technical audience, and I'll talk more on that in the next slide. So yeah, on the technical side of the technical aspect, we have the architects, the solution architects. You have the developers, you have the testers, technical writers. So this whole set of team will be called in to develop the solution. Now, as I said, the business analyst, the role of the business analyst here is to start working with the stakeholders. Now, when I say stakeholders, it's a very detailed topic, but for the, just to tell you what a stakeholder is, it's basically any group or individual who is impacted by the outcome of the project. And also one more thing, the way these solutions are being implemented is through some projects. So they will say, okay, we need a solution either to solve a problem or exploit an opportunity. Now, the way they implement the solution is through projects. So they will initiate a project. In order to fulfill that or to achieve the goal of the project, they will hire a team. Now, within the part of the team, you will have the project manager, you will have the business analyst, you will have SMEs, as I said, subject matter experts, or the business consultants. And then you have these, solution architects, developers, testers. So the entire team will be helping the client or your customer to solve the problem or help them exploit the opportunities. Basically implement the solution. Now I will mainly focus on the BA role in this demo. Okay, so as a business analyst, when you are hired to provide a solution, you will be working with your customers and many more other groups, stakeholders, to understand the current state of the organization. That means you are trying to understand the current business processes. What are the pain points? What are the issues, bottlenecks their processes are facing? You may also be involved in doing the same thing for the systems, because ultimately the processes which are there in an organization are being run on some sort of system or application. And in today's world, you cannot say, anything is being done manually. There is some sort of system or application involved. So you may be either working on creating a brand new application or enhancing an existing application, or maybe even fixing it. So you first understand the current state of either the processes and the systems or applications supporting those processes. So based on that, you come up with a future state. So in the future state, basically you are making those processes more efficient and effective by removing all these pain points, bottlenecks, issues. And that's where the business process re-engineering and improvement initiatives come in. So based on those tools and techniques, you will come up with a future state. And once you have the future state, you will start eliciting, analyzing, documenting, and validating the system level requirements as well as the business level requirements with your stakeholders. So that's a key role of a business analyst here. So as a business analyst, you do all these things. You understand the current state of your organization, right? Or for example, if it's only specific to your one department or one unit, you will be mainly focusing on those on that unit or department. You will be understanding the current state, how things are happening right now. And the first thing, the best practice is to focus on the business process, not go to the system level. You first understand their business processes, what are the pain points, bottlenecks, issues they have. From that, you come up with a future state. You remove all these pain points, bottlenecks, make the process more efficient and effective, and then you start looking at the system level requirements. And this is an iterative and incremental process. It's not a one-time activity. You may be doing it multiple times with your stakeholders, but with each iteration, you have to refine the requirements. The requirements can be at a business level, it can be at a system level, but you need to start from the business level, and that's when you drill down to the system level. And as part of the requirements, you will be eliciting them. That means you are getting to the real root cause of the requirements, or the root cause of the problems. What exactly your user needs, not what they stated, but what they want, what they need rather. You analyze them. That means you are looking from all the aspects. You are synthesizing all the information you are getting from your stakeholders, and you want to look from what I call 360-degree angle. That it's not just what they tell you, but also you want to synthesize all the information, because see, in real world what will happen is you're getting the requirements from different sources. Not the same requirements, but you are getting each user or each stakeholder will be giving their own requirement. But you have, as a business analyst, you have to sit down and synthesize all the information and make sure that the requirements or the needs what they are giving is indeed solving the problem. There is no conflict in the requirements. you're not getting any duplicate requirements, right? At the end of the day, it's a business analyst who has to take the responsibility of making sure that the project goal is being met through the solution, because the developers will develop what the requirements are given. The testers will test against what the requirements you gave. But as a business analyst, you have to make sure that the requirements you are getting is indeed solving the problem or helping your client exploit an opportunity. And as a business analyst, if you don't do a good job there, the entire project will be a failure, even though the requirements were, the system was developed as per the requirements. It's not going to help your customers. And that's a very key element here, and that's why the business analyst role is so important in any solution. So by doing all this, you are helping your client to realign their vision, goal, and strategy. Now, this is what typically as a business analyst you will be working in. So here in this pyramid, you have a different requirements. So as a business analyst, you will be working at a different levels, and at each different level, you will be working with different types of requirements. So here, when you look at this, is what we call the problem domain, because this is where you start understanding the real business need of your stakeholders. Now, when I talk about the business need or requirements, they are mainly related to the vision, goal, and strategies. So if you recollect, in the first couple of slides back, I told that one of the strategy of the management was to improve their customer service. And they thought that, okay, it's taking like 10 business days to process a loan request. They want to improve it. And the way they set a benchmark. They said, okay, our competition is doing it in 2 days. We want to meet that number. So benchmark is basically you compare yourself against a competition, like it should be a reasonable comparison. And you say, okay, if they are doing it in 2 days or 3 days, we want to meet that. So that's what benchmarking is. You set yourself against a certain standard and try to achieve that. So that's at the top level. So then comes your stakeholder requirements. Now, as I said, even this is coming from the stakeholder, but this is at a very high level. This is basically related to the vision, goal, and strategies. Now, when you come to this level, now you're talking to the group of people or individuals. It can be some, the entire department or some specific role within a department. You'll be talking to them. You'll be eliciting the requirements. When I say elicit, you go to the real need, what they need, not what they say. You start eliciting the requirements from your stakeholders. Now here I want to just give an example that the difference between eliciting and gathering the requirements. So gathering is something, let's suppose somebody tells you that I want this. So you can just say, okay, this person is requesting some XYZ item, we will give it to them. So this is what gathering is. The eliciting is you go to the real need of that user and say, okay, why do you need that? Is it something else which can satisfy you? How will it help you solve the problem? So that is what the difference between the eliciting and gathering the requirements. So I'll just give one real example. So um, let's suppose you check in a hotel, right? And you're supposed to, after 2 days, when you're trying to check out, you call the reception and say, okay, I need a limo at 6 a.m. in the morning. So this guy at the desk, he or she says, okay, I'll book a limo for you at 6 a.m. And on the day, at the same time, the limo comes in. So this guy gets down. But now, when he gets down, he sees a bus standing outside the hotel. So he kind of inquires he talks to the reception and says, okay, what is this bus for? So he gets to know that, this bus is taking all the customers to the airport free of cost. And that's exactly what he wanted. So he said, like, I want a limo, right? So that he basically expressed what he stated his requirement, that I need a limo. And the guy at the other end, he basically just said, okay, you need a limo at 6 a.m. in the morning, we will get you. So that is what the gathering is. He gathered the requirements. He did a good job, of course, but he simply gathered the requirements. But the eliciting would be, okay, why do you need the limo? Of course, you may have to ask in a different way, but I'm just saying that, okay, why do you need a limo? So the customer says, okay, I need a limo to go to the airport. So he would have saved some money there and would have gone to the airport free of cost. So that is elicitation. Okay, you need a limo for what? To the airport? Don't worry, sir, we have a free airport shuttle which will take you from our hotel to the airport. So as long as this guy had no big, huge bags and luggage, he or she would have saved some money there, right? So that is what the difference between the eliciting and gathering the requirements. So there is a huge difference, and we'll talk more in the course. So you start talking to your stakeholders and do those kind of elicitation sessions. You do the analysis of the requirements. You document them using different forms and templates. But again, here at this level, you are doing it at a business level. You are not looking at a system level. And then you go to the system level. This is where you start looking the requirements you got from your stakeholders and start converting them into system level requirements. Now there are different types of requirements. You may have a functional requirement, non-functional requirements, interface requirements, the transition requirements. You may have the business rules, and you may also have some what we call the graphical user interface requirements. Now there are different ways to capture the requirements, different templates, different standards, and we'll take a look at each of them when we start in the course as we move along. We'll also take a look at how the use cases are written, how the user stories are written. So in today's world, if you're doing, if you're following an agile practice as compared to the waterfall, you will be mainly working, using different tools and techniques, and the way you document the requirements will also change drastically. And we'll also take a look in detail how the user stories can be written, how they can be split from the features, epics to the user stories. how to write an acceptance criteria, things like that. So this is basically a pyramid. You start from this level, you start talking to your stakeholders, different departments, people, and then the same requirements you churn them or you convert them into the system level requirements, and these can be any of these: functional, non-functional, interface, transition, business rules, GUI, right? And then you can also package the requirements in as different um, as part of different documents, use cases, or user stories. There are many other documents. You have functional requirements document, you have BRDs, business requirements documents. We'll take a look at all of these. So some more examples. I start with my business need, expedite the loan approval process from 10 days to 2 business days, right? Now, when I start talking to my stakeholders, as I said, departments, units, people, role, I'll be focusing very specifically what that role needs or what that department needs, but again at a business level, not at a system level. So I may say, okay, in order to achieve this business need, the personal loan clerk should be able to review the loan documents. He should be able to, or he or she should be able to send the application to the loan approving officer for the final approval. So now when I talk to the loan approving officer, he or she told me that, okay, I want to request more information from the bank clerk, just in case if I need to. So I'll just put it in plain simple English. A loan approving officer should be able to request the additional information from the bank clerk. Also, when I was talking to the loan approving officer, she told me that, okay, I want to have a capability where I can request the credit report of the customer from the Equifax. So that's a credit bureau, everybody knows that. So this guy says, okay, I need some sort of, capability where I can request this information from the Equifax. So I'll just put that, okay, the loan approving officer should be able to request the customer's credit report from the Equifax bureau. So you see, I'm still working at a business layer, nothing to do with system or application, but I'm just trying to, go to the real need of the stakeholders. And once I'm done with this, now I take a look at a system level requirements. And now you can see that, one stakeholder requirements can spawn more than one system requirements. So let's take the first one. A personal loan bank clerk should be able to review the loan documents, right? That is what this guy told me. Okay, I should be able to take a look at the loan documents. So the system level requirements will be more than just one. It can have one-to-many relationship. So I will say the system shall allow the personal loan bank clerk to review the loan documents. The system shall allow the personal loan bank clerk to enter the comments against each application received from the loan processing department. So you see, I have one requirement, one stakeholder requirement, but that is now spawning two system level requirements. It can be more than that, but just for the sake of example, we have two system requirements. Now, what is a functional requirement? I mean, we'll talk more on this, but as a business analyst, you need to understand what are the different types of requirements. So functional requirements is a requirement or a function or a feature which is being used by the user of the system. Which is providing some direct, what we call observable value to the customer or the user of the system. Right? Or any feature or functionality which a user is using, that is basically will be your functional requirement. Now here the user, generally it's a human, what we call an actor, but it can be another system too. Similarly, you have the non-functional requirements, which is what we call the environmental constraints you put on the system. Just for the sake of example, here we are just one, but you may have plenty of them. So here I'm saying that the system shall support 1,000 concurrent users or customers. So even though, as an individual user, I may not be concerned about that. I really don't care whether when I log in into the system, how many people are logged in. Do you care? You don't care. As long as you are able to log in, you are able to perform all the features and functionalities of what you need. You are good. You don't really care. But what if you don't consider this kind of requirement and the system is being built just to support maybe 500 people? So when you roll out this system and more than 500 people log in, the system will crash. Nobody will be able to perform what they're supposed to do. And that's not what the customers expected. So you need to take into consideration all these kind of requirements which are not directly used by the customers or users, but they do affect the performance of the system and the experience your users are getting out of the system. As a BA, you should also be taking into consideration what are the different business rules under which your system should be built. When I talk about the business rules, it's basically the policy which your business or the client enforces across the enterprise. So again, the business rule is nothing to do with system. So it doesn't matter. Let's suppose in this example, I'm saying a loan amount of more than $800,000 must be approved by the loan approval committee. So it doesn't matter whether I'm doing it using a system or I'm just walking into the bank and doing everything manually. The rule will still hold good, right? So a business rule is a policy enforced by the business in its enterprise. Now, interface requirements is something which is when more than one system is involved. So let's suppose you have this, in our case, we have a system which is being built in order to solve this problem. The system shall be capable to send the request to Equifax Bureau to receive the customer's report. Now here we are assuming that the Equifax has their own system, and now the system which we are building has to communicate with that system. So that is what the interface requirements will do. We need to capture all those requirements where we are either sending the request to some external system or we are receiving some sort of response from that system. So anytime when we have the communication between two systems, we have to make sure that we are capturing those requirements. Right. And then we have the transition requirements. The transition requirements is very temporary in nature, and we'll take a look in detail when we in the course. But these kind of requirements are only being done for the time for the certain duration. And once you implement the solution, you may not need those type of requirements. But still, in order to successfully move from the current state to the future state, it's important that you identify those requirements. So in this case, let's say that we have this requirement. All the in-progress applications should be or shall be exempted from the new rules. So let's suppose when you're doing your requirements, when you're talking to your stakeholders at this level, they give you a set of requirements which they say, okay, going forward, we want so and so rules for all the new applications. But then you need to also consider what will happen to the applications which are in the pipeline, which have been submitted, but which have not been approved. Do we need to move them to the new rule, or should we just exempt them? Because typically, these were submitted even before you came up with a rule. So they may say, okay, yeah, it's a good idea, let's exempt them. We don't want to, enforce the new rules on the applications which have already been submitted. So these are the temporary requirements you come up with. You say, okay, all the in-progress applications shall be exempted from the new rules. Or it can be some certain different aspects, but you are saying, okay, in order to move from the current state to the future state, these are my requirements. And once we move to the future state, we no longer need those requirements, right? That's what the transition requirements do. Now, this is some of the definition, two different definitions from IIB and PMI. By the way, IIBA is International Institute of Business Analysis, which is the prime body promoting the BA, Business Analysis discipline. And PMI, which is Project Management Institute, which was considered to be, which is still considered to be the gold standard for project management. And it has got very famous certifications, PMP, PGMP, and many more. They recently came up with the BA certification. And it's going to be interesting battle here between IIB and PMI, because now both are competing. And I've taken a look at both of these since I'm a IIBA certified CBAP, Certified Business Analysis Professional. And I recently, just went toward the PMI body of knowledge on the BA. And they're pretty much same. If you see, like 90% of the material is same. But I like the PMI much better because it has organized those chapters in a much more logical way as compared to the IIBA. But anyway, so these two are the, you can say the key organizations in today's world who are promoting the BA, business analysis role. So I won't read the definition, but for me, the business analyst must analyze and synthesize information provided by a large number of people who interact with the business, such as customers, IT professionals, and executives. The BA, business analyst, is also responsible for eliciting the actual needs of the stakeholders, not simply their expressed desires. That's a very important thing. The customers, most of the times, they will tell you, okay, I want this. But when you start talking to them, when you go to the real root cause, or you find out the real business need, that is much different than what they stated. And that's where the value of a BA is. And also one more thing is, you may not have a typical title of a BA, business analyst, but any person who performs this kind of analysis is doing a role of a BA, is playing a role of a BA. Now you may have different terms and titles. You may have business systems analyst, you may have the requirements engineer, process analyst, product managers, right? The business architects. So all these are kind of overlapping roles. Now this is what the key processes of a BA business analysis is. Now again, this is not a step. It's not being done in a sequence. It's most of the times it's being done iteratively and incrementally, and some of the activities will be overlapping. So you may need to do some needs assessment. That is, you are trying to go back to the, you're talking to your stakeholders and going to the real the business need of your client, the high level requirements what we spoke of. So then you do the requirements elicitation. You start eliciting the requirements. You do the analysis, right? You document the requirements. You want to make sure that the requirements you have come up with is indeed solving the problem and helping the goal of the project. And you're doing the requirements management. That means you're managing the requirements. You're making sure that the requirements which are coming in, which you get the requirements from the stakeholders, are indeed are first of all they are within the scope of the project. You don't want to keep adding the scope to the project. And once you start, working on a project, things will change very fast. So that's what the requirements management do. You want to make sure that the requirements are being updated. They reflect the latest changes. If you have a conflicting requirements, you want to make sure that you identify those conflicts and remove them. You remove the redundancy in the requirements. The requirements, all the obsolete requirements are taken care of. And also the traceability is very important as part of the requirements management. You want to make sure that you trace all the elements right from the business need to the functional requirements, or sorry, the stakeholder requirements, the system level requirements, and also you can go to the design and test level elements and trace all of these, so that maybe when there's a new requirement coming in or the existing requirements gets changed, you know what the impact is to the system. And we'll cover all these things in more detail as we go along. Now this is a very important chart here I came up with. So here you can see these are the project management phases: initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, controlling, and closing. So these columns are the project management phases. And these on the rows, each rows, what I've done is I've come up with all the requirements processes: the elicitation, analysis, documentation, solution assessment, and requirements management. Now this is where you need to understand that either it's a waterfall or agile, you will still be doing all these. The way you are doing it may be different. Whether it's a waterfall or agile, you will still be initiating the project, planning the project, executing it. You will be monitoring and controlling it, and you will be closing it. And the same thing, you will do it for the requirements. And in each of these, you will have a different set of tools and techniques you will be using to perform your requirements activities. So for example, when you are initiating a project, in that phase, you may be using certain set of tools and techniques to do your requirements elicitation. To do your analysis, you will be using these tools and techniques. To document them, you may have different documents. And again, the solution assessment will be done using these tools and techniques. Same thing for the planning phase, execution phase. There's not much in the monitoring and controlling phase, except you want to validate the requirements and you want to make sure that your RTM is up to date. And then there are certain activities when you're closing a project, or in case of you're doing agile, you may also have an iterations which you will be closing. So you may have certain activities you will be doing. And the entire course I've designed is based on this. So there's no way you will be missing any of this. We'll be going through each and every element. And of course, we'll focus more on the things which are more important. And I'll touch base on the things which are less likely to be used in the real BA job. Okay, now let's talk about some of the key skills required for a BA. Of course, it goes without saying that, the first skill you need is a good analytical skills. Right, so that's one of the top skills you will need. Also, it's important that, you have a good problem solving skills, because every time when you go on a project, you will have a new problem, new set of challenges which you will be exposed to. So there's no like cookie cutter where you say, okay, this is the problem, every time I will have the solution. There's nothing like that. Every problem on every project, every problem will be unique. Even within the one project, you will have so many different issues or problems at different levels which you need to solve. And of course, you are an individual of the team, so you will be part of the team and you will have different people who will be helping you. But it's also important that you contribute, you make your contribution towards that problem solving, not towards a problem, but towards solving the problem. You give some contribution. Of course, your communication skills has to be very good, because you will be talking to a lot of people. As I said, on one side, the BA is talking to the business stakeholders. It can be your client, customers, SMEs, subject matter experts, who are the experts in their own domain. And on the other side, you will be talking to the technical folks, the solution architects, developers, testers, technical writers, project managers. So your communication skills, both verbal as well as written, because verbal, you have to communicate, you have to give presentations, demonstrations, and written in terms of, emails, documentation. So you have to be really good on those. Creative and critical thought process. This is also important because, as I said, that goes back to what I said, each problem is unique in nature. So you have to be very creative in coming up with different solutions. You cannot just expect the same solution every time. You have to think outside the box. You have to be more creative and give your suggestions to the customers. Your presentation skills, as I said, you have to give a lot of presentations to your customers. It can be at a high level management. You're to a high level management, or to, your own team. So good presentation skills. Learning skills. You have to keep learning. That's a fact in IT. It's not unlike, marketing job or a regular job where once you are done with the degree and you keep building your experience. In IT, it doesn't work that way. In IT, in addition to all those things, you have to keep learning new things. It can be new concepts, new methodologies, new tools, new techniques, right? You have to keep learning. Learning, you don't need to really go back to the school. All I'm saying is, you have to keep yourself updated with the new trends. Organizational skills. By that I mean, basics stuff like, coordination, planning your stuff, planning your work, planning your meetings, you know, getting things done by people. Not that you'll be kind of, not like, I'm not saying that, you have to order or you have to dictate or direct somebody, but just the way you work in such a way that, you are getting your work done without even putting your weight on anyone. A good domain knowledge, a good domain knowledge is always good. When I say domain knowledge, it can be the industry in which you will be working. So for example, you get a project in finance. Within the finance, let's say you get it in pure banking. So you should have a good understanding of how the banking world operates. Or similarly, you get a project in healthcare, healthcare billing system. So you should know some basic terms and concepts. And it's always you can learn. It's not that you cannot learn. So see, some of the things you can build, and some of the things is difficult to build, because that's how we are. I mean, it's not that everybody can build all the skills, but of course you can always improve. You can always improve no matter what. You can always improve your any of these skills by some learning some theory, by practicing it. You can always improve. And domain knowledge is not that important. What I'm saying is, you of course, given a chance, like let's suppose I want to hire a BA, I get two people, one with a domain knowledge, one without a domain knowledge. Everything else being same, I would definitely prefer a person with a domain knowledge, right? So it's good to be familiar with that. It's not that you have to be an expert in it. And as part of the course, we will give you an option to pick the domain of your choice. We have like more than 12 domains for which we have a experts who can give you a good overview on those domains, and you can pick, and you want to focus specifically in that domain, or it depends on if you get a job interview on a specific domain, we can just focus on that particular domain. Okay, ability to influence stakeholders. You should have a good level of rapport and respect, so that you can influence your stakeholders, not in a bad way but in a good way, of course. So you should have that. I mean, people should have that kind of faith in you. They should respect you and they should look at you with somebody who is bringing some value to them, to the team, and your solution or your suggestions and ideas should be accepted by them, or at least they should be heard by them for further analysis. And these are some of the more skills you may need. Political awareness, who are the stakeholders, which stakeholder is having more power, influence. So you want to make sure that you don't upset them. At the same time, there may be a certain group of stakeholders who are not that powerful, but at the same time, the success of the project will depend on them. So you want to balance that. Our technical awareness. So here you are not expected to, as I said before, you're not expected to learn code or do all those things, but you should be aware of certain things like, okay, what is the latest cool thing going in the market? So a few years back it was SOA, service oriented architecture, web services. These days people talk about the cloud. Of course, they are very valuable concepts. They're not just cool, but they are also very valuable, and people are, I mean, companies are using it in a big way. So you should be aware of those things. From the conceptually you should be knowing, not, I'm saying technically you should be knowing in and out, but you should know what cloud computing is, what the web services will do. And we'll talk, we'll cover those things too. You should be a good team player, system thinking, good decision making. Of course, you should have good ethics. People should trust you. It's always good to have some knowledge about the client where you are going. So always, do some reading before you go. What the product and services, what they are selling, who are their customers, what is their ecosystem. And you should be, ready to work in different, with different tools and in different environments. So in one project, I may be working with a bunch of tools, And on the second project, when I go to a different client, I may be working in a different environment. In the sense, in the previous one, I was more working as a waterfall, but in the new project, I'm working in agile environment. And within the agile, I'm using a different bunch of tools, which maybe I've used some of them before, maybe not. But you should be able to learn them very fast. And these days, tools are very easy. They are not like, which takes a weeks to learn. Maybe a couple of days, you should be good. Now, this is what, this shows the role of, or the importance of the BA. You can see 71% of the projects failed due to poor requirements. The requirements defect account for 56% of the rework. $250 billion of annual waste traced to poor requirements. $46 billion spent on fixing the requirements. And these are latest figures. These are not old. These are from 2014. So you can see the importance of getting the requirements. Not only getting the requirements, but at the right time. So if you do the requirements, if you do the bad job, and you have to keep redoing it, and even though you get the real requirements, but if you get at the end of the project or not at the right time, it's still going to cost you money in terms of rework and redoing a lot of things. So it's not only getting the right requirements, but also getting at the right time. So that's why you need an expert or a professional who knows how to do the requirements. It's not a job of anyone who can just come in and start doing the requirements. He or she has to have a good foundation of what the BA role is, what the business, what the requirements is all about. He or she has to know all the tools and techniques to be used in the right place. And based on that, you can do a good job. Okay, this is a quick overview of how, not how, but what are the different roles we have in today's world. Now, initially, like 20 years back, the role of a BA was very loosely defined. In fact, there was no such role as a BA 20-25 years back. The person who was developing used to do the requirements. He or she used to design it, develop it, test it. So it was just one or two people doing the entire job. But in the recent years, we just saw the figures, they don't want somebody who is not an expert do the requirements. They have realized that, okay, requirements is a very complicated process. Let the developers just develop it. We want a person who can specialize in that, and let him or her do the requirements. So in today's world, we have these different roles or different titles, which you will see very commonly. So on the left side of the spectrum, we have the role of a BA, pure business analyst, right? And on the right side of the spectrum, we have the role of a systems analyst. And in between them, we have these different titles who are the mix of both. So if you see here, you see understand what the BA does it and how it does it. Understand what the business does and how it does it. So you start from the business, as we first saw, right? The current state. You do the current state analysis, determine how to improve the existing processes. You do the future state. Which steps to automate, which steps to get rid of, how to remove the pain points, bottlenecks. So you make the process more efficient and effective. And then you start building the systems or applications to support those processes, the future state processes. So design the features of IT system, create the functional specs, implement the new features of the IT system. So the BA, the business analyst, is more focused towards these two aspects: what the business does and how it does it, and the future state, how to improve the existing processes. So BA, business analyst, business process analyst, is more focused towards this part. But when you start going towards the right side of the spectrum, you have the IT business analyst, who is supposed to know the entire end-to-end process, and that is what we will do. That is the focus of the course. The IT business analyst will start from this point and go all over this. He or she has to do the process analysis, this current state, future state, improve the future state, design the features of the IT system. The requirements they got from the stakeholders are now converted into the system level requirements, and has to be involved in the entire process, even when it's being designed, developed, and tested. Right? So IT business analyst is what we'll focus. So by doing this, we are taking care of the business analyst, we are taking care of the business process analyst, we are taking care of the systems analyst. Sorry, there's a typo here. Right? And then, these are kind of different titles, but I would still, they are all same. This is an interesting slide for you guys. Here you can see, the different levels of, pay you can expect. Now, typically, even though you see 80 to 90K, if you are looking at, if you're looking for a BA role in any of the major cities, I would go with this option. 90, anywhere above 90K is a good start, I would say. So on an average, typically you will see like between 80 to 90K, but it depends on the location of the city, the domain you are going in will also determine how much you are getting. So let's suppose I'm getting a job, at the BA job with, let's suppose, 6 years of experience in some remote of Chicago. I should be expecting around 80, 85K or 90K. But the same job in the New York City, you should expect maybe 110K. And of course, if it's a different domain, if let's suppose in finance, if it's in a finance, you're going to New York in a finance district, you're working in, let's suppose, investment banking domain, your pay has to be close to 125. So that will depend, as I said, the pay will depend on the number of years of experience, your location, and the domain. But on an average, if you're going with 6 years of experience, you should be expecting between 85 to 90K. Same stats here. You start, as you go, as you build your experience, you should be expecting more pay. And something more to cheer about the BA profession. It's one of the fastest growing profession. By 2020, you can see the employers who will be needing this role. And this is coming straight from the, from the government source. It's not something coming from some private source. So they are more neutral, right? I mean, it's coming from the US Bureau of Labor. Now you can do your own check here. So as compared to any other role, you can see, the BA role will get the maximum hits. So you can go to Dice, Career Builder, Indeed, or Monster, or any other web portal, job portals, and you can do the search. Okay, some of the reasons, why you should pursue your career as a BA. For me, one of the most important thing is, your profession has to be really, it should keep you engaged. It should not be boring. It should not be a redundant job or a monotonous job. And BA is the one place where I can definitely say that, with each project you have a new challenge. So you should have a passion to solve the problems and work on some good projects and ideas. The second thing is also, if you are one of those who has some good experience, 6-7 years or even couple of years of experience, may not be in BA role, may not be in the IT role, but now you want to use that somehow differently, right? So you can use the same experience and transform your career as a BA. So you don't want to, you don't really want to throw away your experience. You can reuse it. So that's why I say to build on your past work experience. Now, if you want to continue learning, that means, as I said, with each project you may be learning new domain, new skills. It can be technical, it can be non-technical skills. So if you are one of those, who wants to keep learning new things, this BA role is very much suited for you. And learning doesn't need to be in the classroom. I mean, you can learn anywhere. Even on the job, we learn so many new things, knowingly, unknowingly. So when I say learning, doesn't mean you have to go back to school, spend some money in tuition and hours there. All I'm saying is, get updated, get yourself, with new skills and new expertise. The fourth one is very important. If you want to see yourself at the forefront of the IT, this is the role. This is the role. Because as I said, you just saw the stats, the statistics of getting the bad requirements. And that is what the BA role is. That is why the BA role is so important. The entire team depends on the BA to get the requirements. So as a BA, you will be always, next to the PM, project manager, because as the PM is more responsible towards managing the project, but the next most important role is of a BA who is basically steering the entire project in the right direction. Because as I said, developers will basically develop it based on what the requirements are given. The testers will test it based on the requirements they have been given. But it is the role of a BA to make sure that the requirements which they are building is indeed solving the problem of the client or meeting the goal of the project. Financial remuneration. I mean, of course, we just saw the figures, how much you can earn. So if you are basically, looking at increasing your pay package, that is definitely one of the reasons why you should be looking as or wanting to move to the BA role. The next important piece is you are tool agnostic. That means your role is not dependent on any tool. Whether today it's any set of tools being used or any set of platform which is being used to build the application. It can be Java, .NET or any other. Your role is still valid. Your skills and expertise can still be used and it is not going to be under any threat. So I will give an example. Like few years back, some of my friends went into the SAP and I chose to, go in this route. Like 10 years back, I'm talking. 2004, I started working as a BA. Before that, I've worked as a, SME where I was giving the requirements. But since 2004, I'm getting the requirements. I'm working as a BA. So in 2004, some of my friends went into SAP, and I started my career as a BA. So what happened at that point of time, though they were getting, at that point of time, they were the billing rate was much higher than an IT BA. The problem with those kind of jobs is it's very much dependent on certain technology or a tool. So if the client is not using SAP, he or she may not even be required on that project. Why would I hire a person if I don't need that tool, or I'm not using or not running my business on SAP? I really don't care whether that consultant is so good. Whereas the role of a BA is not like that. I mean, we are adaptive to each environment, and given any tools and techniques or technology, we should be still able to do the job. So that's why I say, it's a tool and technology agnostic. And you don't really have to worry about, okay, what if they change from SAP to Oracle Financials, or what if they get rid of this tool? What will happen to my job? Your job will still be same. You will still be required as long as you can perform. Okay. Um, this is basically, what you see as a BA. From you start as a business analyst, you move to the lead BA. The next role is, of course, you start managing a team, and then you have two different options. You can either go on a technical side, or you can go on the PM role. So you can become a business architect, you can become a manager, and then finally you can reach a role of an enterprise architect, or you can go towards a PM role. You can become a project lead, coordinator, you can be a project manager, and then you can, start working as a maybe program manager or any other role in a PMO, project management office. Right? So that's basically the career roadmap of a BA. It can be a technical, it can be non-technical. So a business architect is similar to BA, but they have a more, responsibilities. They look from the enterprise level, and that's a totally different field. But as you grow, you will start slowly. I mean, you will slowly start, gradually you will start building your expertise into that direction. And we do offer a course on business architects, but that is a little bit different than a BA. So we'll keep this course is mainly towards a BA. Okay. Okay. Now let's talk about the training. So the way we have designed our training program is purely based on two concepts. One is to build a good solid foundation, and that is based on the theory, based on the concepts, principles, and the literature which the entire BA is dependent on. And the second one is the practical application of the same, which will be required for you guys when you go on a job. So these are the two key components of our training program. And that's why the name of the program is the core competency. That's why we have given the core competency. That means it's not just to give you a job. This training is not just that you will, based on certain key concepts and the latest trends in the market, we will give you that training and give you a job. The idea is to build a good solid foundation, to build a core competency within you, so that no matter how long, I mean, where you go, which project you go, which domain you go, you have a very good solid foundation with you. And then based on the practical exposure we will give you, combination of these two, you can successfully perform in any project. So as you can see, in week one, first 2 weeks we'll cover the concepts, theory, and the basic foundation. And then we will start introducing all the detailed topics combined with all the case studies, assignments, and project work. And by week 5th, we'll start preparing your resumes, start preparing for the interviews. And then by 6th week or so, you should be taking the interviews. So in all, you can say like 5 to 6 weeks, that's an end-to-end process. By 6th week, you should be in the market, start taking the interviews. Now, okay, we have the way we have divided this entire courses into 3 different modules. So as I said, the first module is mainly geared towards building a solid foundation, and that will entail all the concepts, all the principles, all the theoretical aspects, which is very important for you to understand before going to the next level. So we'll take a detailed look at what the business analysis is, how the organizations are structured, the key management concepts like Lean Six Sigma, um, and many more. Kanban, the principles of Lean, how to improve the processes. We'll also take a very detailed look at how to do the stakeholder analysis, what are the different types of requirements. And since all the solutions, as I said before, are being implemented as part of the projects, it's very important to understand the project management discipline itself. So we'll also take a detailed look at the project management discipline. What are the different types of SDLC models, the SDLC phases, and the different software engineering practices within the SDLC. And then we'll take a detailed look at all the requirements processes, as I said, the needs assessment, elicitation, analysis, documentation, solution assessment, and requirements management. We'll take a detailed look at all those things. So the module 2 is where we spend, 3 weeks or so. In here, we'll take a detailed look at all these concepts, but in addition to that, we'll also expose you to the hands-on tools, case studies, assignments. So we'll let you do the business process improvement, how to come up with the current state processes, how to do the to-be state processes, how to identify all the issues, bottlenecks, the object-oriented concepts, the UML, which is very important, Unified Modeling Language. We'll take a detailed look at all these diagrams and also teach you how to do it using a tool. And all these tools, we'll be using is mainly, it will be either an open source tool, that means you don't need to pay for it, or it will be, like a Visio, which, we will provide you with. Most of the tools will be, as I said, the open source tool, or we can download it. It's pretty simple tools, and we'll make use of those tools. I mean, we'll use those tools heavily in order to come up with our case studies assignments. Also, we'll teach you how to write a lot of documentation, the use cases, the user stories if you are following the Agile, the functional requirements document, the requirements traceability matrix, how to extract and map the rules. There are a lot of other things we'll take care of. I mean, we'll teach in this course. And by the way, we have a separate section on the Scrum, which is very important for any business analyst to know if you're looking for a job in today's environment. People will be talking about a lot of Agile practices, Scrum. So we have a different chapter on that. And the third module is mainly towards some concepts which are good to know, like basics of quality assurance testing, role of a BA in testing. Sometimes as a BA you have to be involved in the testing too, so we'll take a look at that. Right, and also we'll touch base on the SQL, structured query language. You don't need to know in detail, but just the basic concepts. We'll also take a look at service-oriented architecture, web services, what the cloud computing is, right? How to do a UAT, which is very important for a BA, because as a BA, you are supposed to be heavily involved in when they are doing the UAT. We'll take a look. And also we'll take a look at the BPMN, which is business process model and notation. Now this is again, it's a different topic here, but you should be knowing as a BA, you should be knowing some of the basic notations. Now notation is nothing but the symbols and icons being used when you are doing a process model. Now this is a little bit advanced concept as compared to the pure business process modeling, but we'll just touch base on that, okay? Now, as I said, these courses are being designed by us. It's not something, we want each and every individual to excel in the role of a BA. So it's not enough for anyone just to know the jargons and what's going on in the market and just get a job, because you're not going to perform that effectively. In order to effectively perform, you also need to have a good foundation. And that is what we have done. We have created a good foundation in the first module. In the second module, we will use those foundation concepts, principles, but the focus is more towards application of those concepts in terms of doing the case studies, assignments. All these courses are being taught by certified and experienced people. Myself, I'm a certified analyst, CBAP, I have a PMP, and also I'm a BPM practitioner. That is, I'm the business process management certified. As I said, I have the undergrad in marketing, I have an MBA in finance, and in all I've got 14 years of work experience, out of which 4 years I worked in a non-IT side, and for the past 10 years I've been working in the IT side. And we have 2 more people who are all both certified BAs. Our course is aligned with IIBA and PMI's body of knowledge. So the good thing is, once you take the course, you have already done, you have read not 2, but you have read 2 books, not 1, but 2 books. I mean, the IIBA's body of knowledge as well as PMI's body of knowledge. So you have covered, through our training, you have covered 3 objectives. You got a job, you covered the IIBA's BABOK, and PMI's body of knowledge as well. And this will be helpful in future if you want to go for certification. You have already read it. The only thing is now you have to maybe refresh it and take the exam. So we also update our course very frequently. Like, all the course material is being updated every 2-3 months, because we know, it's changing rapidly. So every 3 months, we take a look at our course, adjust it a little bit, what is required as per the current standards, and we keep updating it. As I said, we also emphasize on the very practical application of it. So we'll give you some real-time scenarios, case studies, assignments, through which you will be exposed to those, on-the-job scenarios. So once you get placed, of course, you may need some support. So we are there to support you at no cost. And if you decide in future, if you want to go for certification, we will give you free mentoring sessions. Now, these are some of the certifications which are being provided by different bodies. Now, some are, like, for example, IIBA is one of the most important one for a BA. They have 2 different certifications. One is CCBA, which is for a junior level junior level people who have just entered the BA role. Certification of competency in BA, business analysis. The second one is more important, CBAP, Certified Business Analysis Professional, which is what I have. This is for the experienced BAs. You need at least, like, I think 5 or 6 years of, or 4 years, I guess. It's been a while I took this exam. But you need like at least 4 years of experience to take this exam. Now PMI, Project Management Institute, recently came up with their own certification on a BA, which is called Professional in Business Analysis, PBA. And it's relatively new, but it's going to be fun to see how how things shape up between IIB and PMI. And then of course you have different public, private, community colleges which do offer certifications. But for now I think your goal is not to get certified. Your goal is to get trained and get placed, and that is what we will do. We will train you, we will coach you, mentor you, place you, and give you the post placement support. And in future, if you want to go for certification, most welcome. So for the next batch, we are starting in actually April 2nd week, and we have every month we start a new batch. You can attend online, you can attend in person. We have a beautiful facility in McLean, Virginia. You can attend there as well. Okay, thanks guys. Thanks guys. If you have any questions, feel free to call me or email me. My phone number is 703-200-9921. And email is Chetan V. Mehta at requirementswizard.com. Thanks, bye.